Hello, welcome to another video. In today's video, I am going to answer a comment on one of my other videos. It's actually by my last podcast guest, Michelle. Because during the podcast, we talked about life and fairness. Is life fair? It's a question I also asked on my Instagram. And yeah, we had a good, brilliant conversation. And she dropped a comment afterwards saying she still suffers from the concept of how can you hold the reality that life is fair when you see so much suffering. Now, I personally really can relate to this. I didn't always see life as fair, and I will break down like my perception on fair and life. But first, it's how do you see suffering and not feel it? Yeah? And to me, I spent so much of my uh, childhood, teens, and early 20s really being able to witness suffering in my personal environment and in the world, whether that was through human interaction, cause and effects. I could see repercussions, stress in people, pain in people, or whether that was just the environment and life, and I could see the pain and the suffering and the cause and effects of what was happening to the earth around us. And also in animals. Now, seeing animals suffer, it's painful, it's horrible. There's an abundance of it. Yeah, so how can you live in a reality with joy when you know this exists? Yeah, and I want to let you know it's possible. I'm more aware now of the suffering that exists in the world, so much more than I was when I was in my teens and my early 20s. There's even more of an abundance of it than I ever could have believed. Yeah? But I'm still joyful. I'm still happy. I still get to experience life to the full. Internally, it's an internal feeling, it's an internal perception and reality. Now, what do I mean by this is, to me, it comes down to my intentions. Early in my life, after suffering depression, chronic fatigue, and suicidal issues, I really wanted to find joy in my life. I really wanted to find productivity and energy and function and find enjoyment even during chaos. And I mean, like, if something's you, like, if you've seen my other videos, like Danya or my mum, both of them were on death's door, as it would be said. And I was caring for them both. And the future looked like this was going to be inevitably until both of them die. So in that moment, it's very hard to perceive that you're going to feel anything good for a very long time. So I made it like a mission. I made it an intention. And something hit me like a fighting force. I am going to find a way to find joy, to find love internally. And it was a progress, it was a journey. It really did have its ups and downs. It wasn't just I had that switch and then suddenly life's beautiful. It wasn't that way at all. And I wasn't in an environment like this in any way. Yeah, my environment was nowhere near what it is at the moment. Yeah, so this perception shift and this change all started when I was in a horrible place. So what changed for me and my perception is really being able to perceive the attitude, the thought and the productivity of is life fair or not. And to me, it's always easier to look at a child because a child's full of this innocence, this life, this joy, and not all of them. But if you've got a child that's in a reasonable environment, yeah, not even a great one, a reasonable environment, when they're young, say 5 years old, they're full of life, they're full of function. They have no fears of the future. Then their ambitions aren't set that far. Their foresight isn't that great. They're really in the moment. Yeah? Now, if they was to witness a form of suffering, say they come across, because it's so easy now, they come across a video on YouTube about, let's just say, dogs suffering in the world. Do you feel that in that moment when they see that would fuel them to be more productive in that day? Or would it cause them a lot of stress, a lot of harm, a lot of worry, anxiety? And then they might be fueled with anger. And this anger feels like it's driving them to make a change, to make a difference. But their interactions with others and in the world within this topic can be really angry. So it's to take note of the suffering you see, the injustice that you want to act towards, and whether you're full of anger. Because a lot of people think anger is productive. I remember boxing, and the anger that I had within would give me a lot of power. Yeah, but it was frustration, it was release. It wasn't joyful. It was like anger. Yeah, and it's because I didn't know any better. In terms of, I hadn't really felt that love within to see the difference on that power. that feeling, that joy, how much more energy and flow and function and productivity I can have when my attitude is in a place of love, unconditionally. There's no conditions. I see suffering in the world and I have no conditions to it must change. I just know I will act in my own way to the best I know how to facilitate that issue and bring as much love and joy into that and make others productive, make myself more productive. It's about, I see it as the more productive things are, the faster things get done. And you can see in a relationship when one person's angry, how much hostility can rise in that thing. You can have a conflict. When it rises to the point someone gets frustrated in anger, you normally have to take a break. It's just like, I'll agree to disagree. Things don't actually change. Change doesn't happen in anger. Change happens in love and openness. You can't be angry and open. They're two different forces. So once you open your heart, once you open yourself, this changes your productivity level. So it's all about wanting and setting the intention that you want to be more productive, more open. Feel less suffering, feel less pain so that you can flow and so that you can actually contribute and make that difference with love and with joy. And that radiates. Love is a radiation. Yeah, so that's consistent radiation. Like when we think of something radiating, it's a consistent energy flow, like a magnet, like magnetism. It doesn't have a power fluctuation, it's just consistent. So love is like, that's why we say, oh, your heart's radiating. It's just pulsing out. It's just consistently pulsing out. Whereas when it comes to like emotions, they have waves. You know, your emotions wave like electric. I like to think of emotions like electric motion. Yeah, and if you know anything about electric and the science of electric, you have like the sine wave. It's a wave. There's always ups and downs. It's consistent in a wave. So it's all about the love and emotions, and love not being an emotion, love being a radiation of being and doing. And you're in that state, and you put that into something, you put that into yourself. You love yourself, you do self-love practices. Check my other videos on self-love. Search my channel, my playlists, or just put Luke Greenheart in YouTube and put self-love and you'll come up with a few more videos. It's actually recommended by Katie, one of my other podcast guests, to talk more on the touch and the power of touch. Because I touched on the subject on the podcast with Michelle on, if your parent always said to you, I love you, I love you, I love you, but they never touched you, would you feel love? So if you're saying to yourself, I love you, I love you, I love you, but you never touch yourself and say, I love you, then do you think it's the same? Something to think about. I'll do a longer video on that. But back to, I'm going to cover now fairness. So what's fairness? To me, fairness is balance. Yeah, when we see something balanced, we go, that's fair. And when we look at life and say, is life fair? A lot of time we can look at humanity. We can look at the things in the world and we'll see a lot of suffering and it looks like an imbalance. There's so much more suffering. The 1% have so much and everyone else has nothing. It looks like a real strong imbalance. I like to look at it at a different picture, a bigger, wider picture of life itself. In the biggest perception I can hold, the stars, the earth, everything. Is that fair? Does it have balance? When I look around, I see a lot of life, yeah, a lot of balance. And I see, like, I use the example of rubbish. Like here, I could walk 5 minutes and find some trash, but it's insignificant to the volume and vastness of where I am and the beauty. And it's like that in life. There's an abundance of suffering, and our mindset and our view and our perception can concentrate on that. And we miss out on all the other stuff. There's always good stuff happening. There's always beautiful acts happening. There's always someone being compassionate to someone else. There's always someone loving someone else. There's always someone trying to do something beautiful. But there's also the opposite. And it's like that in life. There's always forwards. But forwards only exist if backwards exists. Yeah, there's always north. But north only exists if south exists. And that's the balance of reality. The reality is there's always a balance. There's always a duality. When we get into the actual function of energy and nature and the way we can see it, there's always a balance. Yeah, so that balance is fair. And it's where we hold our perception to that, whether we are more concentrated on the unfairness or the fairness, or whether we're just in realization that both exist. And like I said, if you was to tell a child about all the suffering in the world, would they be more productive? I personally have the perception and thoughts that they wouldn't. Yeah, but who am I to know all this? So I can only go with my own perceptions and feelings of how I would feel as a child. and how I did feel as a child, being able to witness it and see it. Yeah, so it's about being more productive, and the defense will come up that being joyful and knowing suffering exists is like dismissing the suffering, like it doesn't exist, like you're being blind to it and going, oh, I'm not looking at it so I don't feel bad. And it's not that at all. It's like almost the opposite. It's like I see it so clearly that I want to do something about it. I want to make a change. I want life to be beautiful for as many as possible. I want to see what I can do to change someone, change myself. Can I be that example? Yeah, so it's like, to me, it's looking at that and it's going, I'm not ignoring the suffering at all, but I want to be as productive towards it as possible to contribute, to serve. And without judgments, without conditions. It's not whether you do something or don't do something, or things go this way or go that way. There's no expectations that it will change. I know I've done what I could when I could to contribute my energy, my source, my life, my love. And it's not conditioned. It's not full of expectations. Otherwise I'm living in the future, chasing that dream, chasing that. But there's ambition there to change. There's ambition fueling you. But you're holding the presence of love and balance. And like I said, life, I look at life as not the job, not where you are, but the life force, the difference between a dead body and a live body. There's a difference. Yeah, so I call that a life force. A plant has a life force. Yeah, you go get a fresh, what could it be? A carrot. Don't know why carrot came to mind, but let's say a carrot. When it's in the ground, it's growing, it's alive. You take it out and it will start to die. And eventually it goes moldy and it's dead because the life force has run out. Big part of my nutrition is eating as much life force as possible. Yeah, so like one food, for example, cabbage. I eat a lot of cabbage. You know, I don't like to eat the same thing every single day, but cabbage is a staple, say, to my current food plan, way I eat, because it's abundance in life. And even when I've got it in my cupboard, it's still growing. Yeah, it's not dead. So it still has that life force and you can eat that raw. So it's like I want to be alive. I want to have that life force and I'm fueling and feeding that. I'm not setting my mind and concern so much to proteins, carbs and all these things I used to be and what thing. I'm just like, is that a life force? Has that got energy within it? I'm going to have that energy because I want more energy. I want more function. I want more life. And for me, it's working. For me, it's good. I don't eat a lot of food. Yeah, it's nice. It keeps my costs down. It's not my motivation, but it's nice that it does. Yeah, my motivation, like I said, is function and joy and love. So the way I eat, I'm measuring that. Do I feel productive? Do I feel joy? Do I feel love? Is it increasing? Is it growing? These are measurements for me to consciously take awareness on, because that's where I want to flow. That's where I want to go. Yeah, and where your focus goes is where your energy flows. So if you're focusing on the suffering, it's not so much that your energy and productivity will go towards fixing that, but your emotional state, your inner turmoil energy will focus on that suffering and it will plague in your mind. It'll keep you up at night, you know, thinking about what's going on in the world. I remember a big part in my life, in my journey, was going to India when I was younger. When I was 15, I got the privilege to visit India. And we went to all different places. It was part of a youth club where I actually boxed. They had a youth club like with it as well, and we done some like charity stuff, and it was really cheap. And they took a bunch of kids to India, and it was just unbelievable. Like I can't explain in words how different it was. But what really stood out to me was the children I saw. We even went to like an orphanage, which was beautiful. It made me want an orphanage. One day, it's in my ambitions to open and fund an orphanage somewhere in the world, because it was beautiful to see these children together, playing, living, who needed it. And it's just from that moment, I was just fueled. I was like, I'd love to set this up. I'd love to be a part of this in some way. But when I was there and I saw the children on the street, I saw children with their arms or limbs missing, eyes missing, things that you would see as just so, in my perception and many, so it's like so much suffering. Yeah, but what stood out to me is the smiles. Yeah, I saw little kids and they was all together. It was the community. It was how much social interaction the children had with children. You could see there'd be one who's like 13 years old and the grown up of the group, And there's got like 4-year-olds, there's even kids holding babies, and they'll be on the streets together asking for money or food, but they're smiling. And this was not always the case, but I'm saying I saw an abundance of smiling children that my perception would be suffering greatly. But at that point in my life, I was in a lot of depression, a lot of stress. As my mum was really ill, I was still only a teenager trying to figure out life still. And it really got to me because I was like, I can't smile like these children. Yeah, I have a shelter when I get home. I have parents. Yeah, whether they're ill or not ill, I still have them. And I was like, these kids are suffering, but they don't look like it in the sense of their internal state. Their external state looks like it. Whereas for me, it's like it's more my internal state is clearly represented. I can look back at some pictures, which I avoided taking as many as possible. But when I look at them, I can see just a miserable, head down, body's collapsed and struggling to smile, struggling to represent it. And it used to get me on, get like into my core when someone says, smile for the picture. And I was like, but I'm not happy, why should I smile? I mean, this is fake. I didn't want to be not authentic to myself. So it was a really horrible position to be in when people tell you to smile when you don't feel like smiling. And I've noticed that in a lot of people when you say like, you got to train to smile again. And there you can see the defense come up and they don't want to do it. You know, I know exactly what that felt like. But yeah, we're seeing that sort of suffering and being aware that my perception and my reality, builds my personality. Perception and reality builds your personality. And what personality do you want to carry? What do you want to bring to the table? What do you want to interact with people like, and what do you want them to get from you? Yeah, and I've seen personally firsthand that my perception that I hold now has motivated people, has inspired people, and that it inspires and motivates me. It's like fuel. So I can only go by my own perception that once I shifted myself to life is fair, life has balance. And it's the life force, the energy, the life force is balanced. And this changed a lot of things for me. But it took self-love, it took a lot of work, it took a lot of practice. But it made me more active. It's the whole reason I have a YouTube channel, that I'm online sharing and doing things. Had I come on before, I would have come on with a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, judgment. I would have been telling people, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. This is the best way to do something, and being angry. So for me, I would say to anyone listening is, if you're still struggling with this concept, is to take time to be aware in your life how much throughout your day, from when you witness life, from when you witness suffering, how much frustration, anxiety, and anger do you suffer? Because you're getting self-inflicted suffering through perception. Again, it's not medical advice. It's just my perception of my experience and how it was for me. Can't say it'll be the same for you, but I'd say it's worth a try. See if you can work on it, if this is an issue. Because who wants to have anger in their life? Who wants to have frustration in their life, anxiety, depression? So working on these things, and like I said, there's a lot to work on. It's not just mindset. There's a lot of stuff right now saying mindset, change your perception, and it isn't just perception. Yeah, you can change your mind. You need to work on the body. You need to build that relationship between the mind and the body. Yeah, so your life force can flourish. So it's working on your posture, it's working on new nutrition, it's working on self-love and perception, and looking at life with beautiful eyes. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. And if you don't mind, if you liked the video, hit the like button. It really helps. Subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of every new video. Have a beautiful day.